Good morning. How are you? I watched this thing in horror last night. Somebody started tweeting late last night that there was an active shooter in Dallas. And so I found a news station in Dallas streaming all of these activities live. And I want to say this. I know a lot of people are talking about, well, it was part of the Black Lives Matter movement, and there was people don't like Black Lives Matter. Let's put it like that. But this was not Black Lives Matter. This was a person with a murderous heart ambushing a peaceful demonstration. The police and the community was working together, trying to find resolution, trying to work together. And just think about this now. When we have a perfect example of people voicing their displeasure and the police listening and working with the community, somebody comes in with a murderous plot to catch people off guard and ambush the police officers. That's sin. That's sin, plain and simple. There is no justifying sin. You just can't do that. I wrote some things down, and I just want to make sure that I get some of those things across. So I've got this in front of me. Many times you just see me speak off the fly, but this is sin. This is just pure sin. It's a murderous heart that targeted law enforcement officers. It is wrong. It's sin. And one thing I'll say about the African American community being born when I was born, that Dr. King and those of the civil rights movement preached nonviolence. Nonviolence. We don't get change by trying to murder and commit all kind of acts of sin. We don't riot all in the streets. Riots do happen, because you have to remember riots are the voice of the unheard. But we need to make sure that we understand that this was not Black Lives Matter. This was murder. This was plain and simple murder. Somebody was yelling, "Why?" Somebody said, "This is crazy. This is not what we came here for." I heard people saying, as they were interviewing people on the street in various ways, they were just talking about this chaos that had just succeeded such a wonderful outing with community and police. It was crazy. It was crazy to go from a peaceful demonstration to murder. You can't answer murder with murder. You can't answer sin with sin. I'm resolute on that fact. You cannot get me to see it any other way. I was brought up with two wrongs don't make a right. But I also understand that if a person is stealing that's hungry, we don't justify the stealing, but we understand they were hungry. And I'm saying that we must understand that we have some inconvenient and ugly truths that we must deal with in the midst of this murder. And maybe this murder, maybe not the kids that were gunned down, maybe not the people that were gunned down in the movie theater, maybe not the people in Florida, maybe those don't answer any real issues. But this murder, these murders, I pray will help turn us around. We have to face some really inconvenient and ugly truths. Somebody is responsible for Freddie Gray. Somebody's responsible for Sandra Bland. Somebody is responsible for Eric Gardner. This issue is a powder keg, and it's so much bigger than Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. This is a huge issue that you cannot continue to come up with phrases like justifiable shooting. You just can't do that and expect better results. We can't continue to have police departments, DAs, judges who invest in for-profit prisons. We can't continue to have unlawful arrests and detaining people, covering up murders with statements like, "I feared for my life. They were resisting arrest." This is a justifiable homicide. These kinds of sins against her own citizens, against America's own citizens, expecting some docile cooperation after a while becomes impossible. I know somebody says, well, it sounds like you inciting violence. No, I'm just speaking truth. This is how sin works. Sin is never satisfied. This is how sin works. In fact, I'm going to say something, and some of you going to say, I can't believe he equated that with that. But let me tell you, you know what the 4th of July was really about? It was people who got tired of being marginalized by a government that was taxing them and was doing all kinds of things against them, that was disenfranchising them, and they decided we're going to have a revolution. And it became a revolutionary war. It was a fight for independence. Well, maybe this is not on that scale, but it's the same thing. You can't continue to marginalize your citizens. And then think about this. You have America saying things like with Donald Trump. If some of those people down in Florida had a gun, it would have been a different outcome. The NRA says, how do you stop a bad guy with a gun with a good guy with a gun? They just murdered 5 good guys. 5 good guys with guns were ambushed in one of the most cowardice ways. It's sin. It's sin. An AR-15, a weapon of war, in a civilian population, targeted at law enforcement officers. Good guys with guns, 5 dead, 12 injured. America has to understand this is sin. You can't sweep this stuff under the rug as long as you're making money and you're making profits and don't really understand that you're destroying the nation. You're destroying the very character and fiber of the nation, hiding behind the Second Amendment, hiding behind the Blue Shield with statements like it was a justifiable homicide. No, America has got some sins to deal with. And unless we can have an honest conversation, we cannot check this sin. Unless we have an honest conversation, we cannot put things in proper perspective. We must have an honest conversation about race, about classism, about economics, about disenfranchisement. We must have an honest conversation about how this nation treats its poorest citizens, how this nation creates poverty, and poverty creates a certain pathology. We got to have a real conversation about what's going on in this country, because this may just be the tip of the iceberg. This is a powder keg. You just can't tell me 6 bullets in this guy is the issue. It's beyond that. You can't tell me that you can pull up to a car and put 4 bullets in a man with a little girl in the back seat, be declared it a homicide. Family can't even see the body, and nobody's arrested yet. It's the 3rd day. It's a homicide, but nobody's arrested yet. This is a powder keg. I had one former representative, and I think he's a talk show radio host now, calling for the assassination of the sitting president, President Barack Obama, after this thing in Dallas. I wonder if he's going to be arrested for calling for the murder of a sitting president of the United States of America. Sin that begets sin will only produce more sin. Violence begets violence. Hatred begets hatred. Bigotry begets bigotry. Prejudice begets prejudice. You cannot continue America in this sinful climate, celebrating it. We have somebody running for the office of the President of the United States celebrating bigotry. Mexicans are all murderers, drug dealers. I guess there's some good ones. And this is the guy we choosing? This is who we standing behind? The money from the NRA. I want to say this as nice as possible. But the money from the NRA going into Congress, it's like a pimp with a prostitute. They done pimped our government out with money. Okay, I guess I can stop there. We need Christ. We need the Lord. We need Jesus. We need the church to stand up in this hour and pray like never before. I mean, really seek God and pray against the spirit of racism, marginalizing, disenfranchisement, classism, social conditioning, the propaganda that makes one person smaller than the other. Pray against it. The defunding of schools, the reversal of city services, the gentrification of taxes going higher and moving people out. We need a church that not only will just pray about these issues, but let's get up and do something about it. Let's galvanize our efforts. Let's have a real conversation about strategies that we can implement for systemic change, lasting systemic change. I'm tired of talking about it. Now let's get up and do something about it. We can pray, but I sort of feel like Samuel today. And Samuel is praying for Saul one more time. And God says, get up. I've rejected him. Now go down to Jesse's house where there's a king. Put some leather to this. Stop this stuff about praying for stuff that you know won't change unless you get up and come up with a strategy and anoint that strategy to change the nation. Have a most excellent day.